This module is going to review the doors records within the Salto Pro Access system. So to access the doors list, you simply depress the doors icon, which brings you into the doors list. And then I'm just going to double click this conference room door as my example for this review. The first couple of fields up here are for naming and describing the door's physical location. So the name field has 24 character limit on it today, and that's the field that you're going to see when you pull a drop-down list to assign it to a zone or to a user or perhaps to an access level. Also in reports, when you go to build reports and you want to choose doors, the name field that you see on this form is what you're going to be selecting from. It is limited to 24 characters, so we also have a description field which will allow you to further define it. So that if you're having a difficulty. The description field is not revealed in all these selection boxes though. So you really need to come up with a naming convention that works for you and your organization within that 24 character limit. The next little space here that's left blank is where the user-defined fields, if they've been turned on, are exposed. And these are fields that you can put additional information, like if you're in a campus environment, which building it's in, or maybe what level it's on, other sorting mechanisms so that when you're working with the doors list, you have additional options in terms of how to sort and manipulate the list of doors to find the one you want. When you have hundreds or thousands of doors, that can become a difficult thing. Also, on the door, you have a standard opening time, which is this next window. This one's set to 6 seconds, and this is the time that the door will unlock based on a standard user's credential being authorized. And then the next box is the increased opening time, which is that selection choice by user back at the user form that allows for an extended amount of time should that user have that selection for a mobility impaired operator to work their way through the opening. Next, you see the calendar selection. The calendar selection basically says which calendar of special days and holidays does this particular door need to follow. So in my case, it's set to my holiday calendar. The next box that you see on my screen is for a time zone assignment. In this particular database, I have the time zones turned on, which allows for the system to spread across multiple time zones. If I have the time zone selection turned on, then whether or not the lock follows daylight savings time is defined by the time zone that it's in. So again, mine is set for Central Time, which will automatically follow the standard Central Time zones. If you look at the module on time zone creation, you'll see where you can actually set that to move forward and back on non-standard days for areas that don't adhere to the U.S. standard time zone configurations, like Arizona, and there are a few other local areas that treat daylight savings time a little bit differently. But we have provisions in the system that allow you to do it any of those ways. The next window that you see below that is to ask if this is an anti-passback door. The system does allow one anti-passback zone. So if I turn it on, I have to select whether this goes from the outside in or from the inside out. And again, there's a discussion about how anti-passback works and what that does in a different module. The next checkbox is for audit on keys. You may have, most of the time that check will be on every door, but you could have doors perhaps maybe to a trash bin or something like that you don't feel are necessary to audit. And therefore, if you turn that off, it will not write the history transaction back on the user's credential. It does stay in the lock, so even if I've turned off audit on keys, I will have the last 1,000 transactions in the doors memory itself at all times. Next, you have audit inside handle, which basically says watch the inside handle for an offline lever for its usage and record it in the transactions. So for an offline lock, that would be pulled only when you pull the audit trail through the PPD. For an RF lock set, it would be transmitted immediately. And then lastly, in this module, we're going to talk about admitting expired keys. So again, the keys have this activation window on them. If the key has expired, by default, the key would not function in an offline door until it had been reactivated via one of the hotspots. This checkbox allows you to admit a key even though it's expired, and then you can define how many days will it allow it to do that. So for instance, if I had, say, a bicycle room that sat out across the parking lot, I might want to allow a user's card to have expired by a week or two in the event that they were on vacation and they came back to the facility and wanted to lock their bike before they came in the building. In that case, the hotspot would probably be at the front door and not out at the bike rack where the bikes are stored in that little bike paddock area. That's a good use for admit expired keys. Another good one is when you have an internal and external vestibule door, you might want to reduce the cost of those by having an offline controller on the outside door that's normally unlocked during the day and having the hotspot on the inside door. But in the event that a employee or a cardholder came to the facility in the evening hours when the outside door would be locked, you may want to admit them through that door even though their key had expired, because the very next door they get to will be the hotspot, which would revalidate their key. In the event that their key wouldn't revalidate, they still wouldn't have gained access to the building. They would have only gained access to the vestibule. So that's what this admit expired keys is. In an additional module, we'll cover open modes and periods, as well as the configuration for online and RF locks.